It is time. We have 3 weeks left of baseball's regular season.
I think so,
Is
yeah.
am I accurate there? I have no idea. We're almost done, right? We are getting right down to it. It kind of looks like we know who the playoff teams are going to be. There's a little bit of a narrowing gap maybe in the American League, but I think we pretty much know who the playoff teams are going to be. As we bring in ESPN analyst, Substack writer, and 9-year big league veteran Doug Glanville. I look at the standings, sir, and the Milwaukee Brewers have the best record in baseball. Are they the best team?
They are the best team. I mean, until, the Los Angeles Dodgers have the crown, so you still have to beat them. It doesn't make them the best, but they're certainly playing the best baseball. I've seen them a couple of times. They're pretty amazing. The fact that they have contributions all through the lineup, they handle the bat, they run the bases. They really don't make a lot of mistakes, which is
right.
A big thing. Because I think the thing is, what makes them stand out also is the fact of the time we're in. I came up and we would learn 15 different ways to slide into a base before you advance to the next level. You had to learn every little facet of the game to be like a complete fundamentally sound player. That was just a requirement. And now guys just, shoot through the system because they, pitch recognition and certain things, and that just gets them advanced. And they don't necessarily have to have all these other things. They probably played more baseball in youth sports, but it's a different day now. And so when you see a team that's so sound fundamentally, consistently, then you notice that's hard to do today, because usually you have a lot of young guys, and they're young, that are still figuring out how to slide, how to throw to the right base, how to do, Pat Murphy works on that stuff. So to me, that's what makes them stand out more, because they're good, but it's the way they're good. And some of it is just actually what they're not doing, and that is not making a lot of mistakes.
Doug Glanville is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show. You mentioned a couple of things that, as we were closing in, we're 4 weeks away from the postseason. To me, defense, base running, and bullpen, I think those things decide who wins and who doesn't, because the mistakes that you make, I think back to whether it was Lonnie Smith in 1991 for the Braves, or whether it was Timo Perez for the Mets in 2000. Base running will cost you runs, and cost you games. And those types of things, they're the little things that don't necessarily impact the regular season, but I think they lead to postseason wins and losses.
Well, they always say pitching and defense, and sometimes that's just something we say, but it's a real thing. The team that hits the most home runs usually wins a lot of games in the postseason, but the team that prevents those home runs,
right.
that's a big, other side of that equation, and no doubt mistakes, add up very quickly. We talked to Rob Thompson before the game, the Phillies manager, on Monday. I guess that was a couple of days ago, and he was talking about how, we have to shift gears now. This is go time, and it's so interesting that the distinction that's made between regular season and postseason, it's made in September. It's made in late August. It's made. They're like, okay, now we're going to bunt more. We're going to hit and run. We're going to. Castellanos is no longer going to play right field in the late innings for defensive replacements. Mm-hmm. It's another season. But the cool thing about the Brewers is they don't have to change anything. they just play their game. It's so there's something to be said for consistency and just being who you are. And Murphy, he's so good at that. And the Brewers, I said, as an organization, is just good at that.
Doug Glanville is joining us here on the Adam Gold Show as we get to the postseason. A career 2,000 OPS in the playoffs, Doug Glanville. That was a true fact, Doug.
Yes.
It's a true fact. You can't deny what it says on baseballreference.com. Let me ask you about Juan Soto. Everybody knows I'm a Mets fan. I'm a Mets fan. He had a very, very rough first month, maybe the first 6 weeks. He went through even another slump, I think, just coming out of the All-Star break. But it does look like in the last month that he looks very much like the Juan Soto that the Mets signed for $1 billion, zillion, trillion, quadrillion dollars. How good is he? Is he an MVP candidate? Although he wasn't even an all-star. I'm not sure you could do both of those. But what are your thoughts on where he is, and can he carry the Mets beyond where they seem like they're capable of being right now?
Juan Soto is just, he's a generational talent. And, I look at the first month and, I don't know. I wasn't thinking that that's how his season would end. I think he tends to, first of all, one thing when we talked to Carlos Mendoza about it, his manager, he's like, look, it's a huge transition, and yes, it's self-imposed, but the fact is you have to learn a whole new, teammates and players and coaches and analytics department, what data you're going to use, and you're moving whatever family. And he made that choice, but it's not exactly an easy transition. And to just walk right in and be like, oh, I'm going to hit 400 this month. Some people do, some people don't. And by the way, and he's always been hitting the ball hard too. That's the thing. Like when he hits it on the ground, sometimes you lose sight of that he's still hitting the ball 97, 100 miles an hour. And, even when he's struggling, you're kind of like, he's getting his walks and he's hitting the ball hard, so, it's just one of those, you can't steer it. And there's times in the year he's finding holes. There's times he's not. But in the long haul, he's just going to be one of the best players, best hitters in the game. And it's just now coming sort of together at a time that the Mets definitely need that extra push. And but as you mentioned, they have to pitch, and whether it's young guys or whether it's the veterans, they have to find ways to get the outs. And Manaea and some of these cats are not where they want to be. But they made the moves they were supposed to move at the trade deadline to get the pitching. Now they have to actually execute on the field.
Doug Glanville is joining us here, ESPN baseball analyst, former big leaguer. Here's the thing, though. Right now, and the second rookie is just a one-star deal. James McClain looks like he might be for real. By the way, Garner High School guy, so the people listening to this right now locally are pretty excited about that. We talked to his high school baseball coach a week ago. These guys are being brought to the big leagues quicker than ever. For a lot of reasons, it's financial. I don't know if that's the reason for the Mets. They desperately needed pitching. But what are the odds that he can sustain this into October?
Well, McClain has got some really good stuff, and when we talked to his manager before, because we called his first game against Seattle, and I got to see, okay, where's this guy coming from? And I don't think he was even in camp the 2 years before. He was a shortstop or whatever.
Yeah, so, he was drafted as a two-way player.
Yeah, and he's like a big swing and miss. He had like a 50%, strikeout rate, but he hit the ball a long ways. So, but McClain, he just loved his makeup. He said he actually intentionally went to the backfield to see him, and heard some good things, and liked his makeup and saw how he handled. And just like the other night, he got in a little jam. He was walking people, but he doesn't give in, and then he makes the pitches he needs to make. So that's a great attribute for any pitcher. And the question is, as the league adjusts to him, will that sort of neutralize? Because he got that wipeout sweeper slider combo, and he just locates it well enough to get a lot of chase, but he'll still be willing to throw it in counts where he's behind because he feels confident in his ability to locate. And so he has a lot. And from jump, Carlos Mendoza has been loves the guy. He just sees his demeanor, and as he always says, the game doesn't get too fast for him. That's saying a lot when it's your first year and you hadn't even been pitching that long, really, in the sense of that at this level with this level of consistency. So, yeah, you need guys like that. You need Marty Bystrom in the Phillies in '80 or whatever. You need guys to come in and just be rookies and unknowns and pitch really well. That Waldrop kid, Hurston Waldrop for the Braves, really tough, really good stuff. And so those are the X factors of what can separate a team for their ability to go deep into the postseason, because McClain could play a strong role.
I remember Marty Bystrom from my days playing Status Pro. I know you're a Stratomatic guy, and you still play Stratomatic. And I know you've written about it. I'm going to talk about your Substack here in just 1 second. But I am curious. It is not unusual to see a pitcher throw at the next batter after giving up a home run. But last night, Houston and the Yankees Framber Valdez apparently beaned his own catcher, Cesar Salazar, after giving up a home run. Have you ever seen that? And what does that dugout likely look like in between innings? Because it was clear looking at the video that Salazar knew what happened.
I mean, I'm so digesting if it's like believable. If I just almost can't believe it, right? It's like, it's stunning to watch. And, I know the quotes are kind of, the right words, but I think it's just the dismissive by when it did happen, there was like no concern, it was just like, usually like, oh my God, it's like you're just upset about it, like the cross up and whoever's fault it is, someone, and you didn't see that. It was almost like, yeah, take that. You know? So I don't know, but if they do their, they know, of course the Astros know. So if they do whatever internal, I won't say investigation, but they just figure out I think that's a big deal. That's a big deal because it's like you can't, if they find that he did that intentionally and just didn't care, it changes your whole culture and your manager. It's like what you're going to just like. I mean, this is a 90-something. First of all, you could really hurt somebody, obviously, but besides that, there's a whole other implications about just respect for your teammates. So I think that we're going to hear a lot more about that. I mean, I'm sure the Astros don't want that, but it's just like it was just stunning. It was stunning to watch, and you want to think like, okay, heat of the moment, and he called the wrong call, but you have a pitch comm. That's the other problem. Like it's
right.
It's like, okay, I pressed the button, and did it come out in another language, or did something? Like you thought it said you need like Google Translate for the pitch comm. I'm trying to figure out like what. So yeah, but if I'm on that team. If I'm a catcher, I mean, that is enraging.
Yeah.
Enraging.
I don't understand. I just don't understand teammates doing that to teammates. But Framber Valdez had worked himself up into a lather, obviously. All right, finally, Unboxed with Doug Glanville, a 3-part Hall Oates.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So, it was time. I've been writing a lot, and so the Substack. I don't have these layers, but I do have a overarching Substack called Welcome to Glanville,
right.
And we have an unboxed sort of section, which is usually it's like the paid section because I unbox all this memorabilia and I write about it.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, I think the thing that I'm really passionate about is just the rhythm of writing, and Hall Oates are, it's been close to my life all, as well as I can remember. And it was like 40 years of music, but yeah, it was time. I've written a lot of different things in different versions of articles about them and, baseball and Hall Oates, I just wanted to hone in and finally sit down. I felt like I was ready. John Oates has a new album. The reason I met them was a kind of a bet or a promise made by my 6th grade teacher's husband, who edited Guitar Magazine. But we went over their house for dinner in 7th grade, which is another thing. Students and teachers having dinner is kind of awesome.
Wow!
And so about 7 or 8 of us went to dinner, and he asked about our dreams and our goals, and I told him I wanted to be a major league ball player, and he took the photo out of the center, which was Hart and Nancy Wilson, and signed it and said, you know what? If you make it to the big leagues, I'll introduce you to Hall Oates, because he knew their band.
Oh wow! So
I kept that. In 1998, I called them. I got up in '96. They weren't touring, and then '98 they were touring for Marigold Sky. This album had come out, and I got to meet them backstage at Radio City Music Hall. So I waited 15 years.
Wow!
So it was cool. And so it's 3 parts. Part 2 is almost done. And it should be cool. And then I've written my dedication and self-reflected and talked some baseball there too.